Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Alright, as you already know, we've covered the third version of Sunday's kit in the previous video, and this time, of course, we are going to cover the kit of the Fuxian female character that we've all been waiting for. Well, who else but Tingyan Fugue? In the first version of her kit, we've seen that most of her kit is aimed at being a support in a future Super Break team. Well, will the latest changes to her kit in this third version be able to provide improvements to her kit? So without further ado, let's get into it. Do you have a character or weapon in the game that you really want but you don't have enough Stellar Jade? Here is a smarter way to recharge your favorite games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. Look no further than Loot Bar. Loot Bar is the most reliable top-up platform. It saves up to 20% for all orders compared with the official channel, and it provides an 5% off for your first purchase. It's 100% safe as you will only be using your UID. We will buy back for 3,000 Stellar Jades for $42, which otherwise would have costed $50, totally saving $7.5. We received the crystals we purchased in less than 3 minutes. All recharge will be done through the official channel with MiHoYo, which allows you to enjoy all top-up offers. Ready to level up your gaming experience? Check the link in the description to get the amazing discount. Before we get into the main point about the changes in Tingyan's kit, I thought it would be a good idea to look at the changes that have been made to Tingyan's base stat. As we know, in the first version of Tingyan Fugue, the maximum energy is 150 points, which means that the total cost to Tingyan when using her ultimate is 150 points. Did you know that in the third version, HoYoverse made changes to this maximum energy, lowering it to 130 points. This is 20 points lower than in the previous version. Of course, this is good news for fans, because if you pay attention to the first version of the beta test, Tingyan looks a little difficult to be able to activate her ultimate called Solar Splendor Shines Upon All in a few turns. Even on several occasions, she only issued the ultimate once in several turns. Of course, by decreasing the number of ultimate costs she has, it means that players will find it easier to activate this ultimate, because according to me personally, this ultimate has a pretty interesting effect, where in its third version it still gives the same effect, namely dealing fire damage of 200% of her attack to all enemies, and also being able to ignore the weakness type of all enemies to reduce their toughness. Imagine if this ultimate triggers more often. Obviously, this character becomes more interesting, right? In addition to experiencing changes to the maximum amount of energy pool, a surprising change is in the minor traits owned by Tingyan, where in the initial version, Tingyan had an additional effect hit rate of 28%. Meanwhile, in the third version of the update, the increase in effect hit rate was changed to an increase in speed by 14 points. Well, on the one hand, I honestly regret the loss of this 28% effect hit rate a little, because Tingyan Fugue has the ability to provide a decrease in defense through her Virtue Beckons Please skill, which means she needs a little bit of effect hit rate status to be able to debuff the enemy. However, considering that the speed increase she gets is very high, which is as much as 14 points, I can't complain much, because 14 points of speed for a character, especially for a support type character, is very much needed, right? Okay, next we enter into another interesting part, which is the Tingyan Fugue skill called Virtue Beckons Please. At first glance, the effect of this skill is quite unique. This skill can give Fuxian prayer status to one ally, then make their attacks able to provide an 18% defense reduction debuff that can last for 2 turns. Both in the first version and the third version, the mechanism for giving this defense reduction is still the same. However, overall the skill Virtue Beckons Please has undergone some changes in this third version. In the latest version, there is one additional point in the kit, which is the provision of a toughness reduction effect for ally who has Fuxian Prayer. If the ally who gets Fuxian Prayer attacks an enemy that does not have the same elemental weakness as them, then this ally's attack can cause a toughness reduction of 50% of the original toughness possessed by the enemy. However, the effect of this toughness reduction cannot be stacked with other weakness ignoring toughness reduction effects. Of course, the addition of this effect gives a new color to the Tingyan kit. You can imagine if this skill is given to a character who has a kit to perform area attacks, then we will more easily make large number of enemies get weakness broken. And well, Rappa and Lingcha gets a very good benefit through the addition of this effect, which means they will get stronger with this buff. In addition to skills, the talent called Fortune Follows where virtue spreads has also changed. The first change that we can clearly see is the renaming of the additional toughness given by Fugue to the enemy, which in the first version was called called Exo Toughness. In the third version, the term Exo Toughness was apparently changed to Cloud Flame Luster. Anyway, it turns out that in this kit, the percentage of additional toughness that Tingyan Fugue gives to the enemy through this talent has changed from the previous version of 50% to 40% of the enemy's maximum toughness. Maybe here some of you will have the opinion that the change is not big, right? Well, honestly, I can understand that. But the change in the percentage of additional toughness from 50% to 40% has quite an impact. You can imagine, by having less additional toughness, it is also easier for us to give break damage back. Or maybe on some units, like Himeko for example, it makes it easier to get a stack to issue talent abilities. Nice, isn't it? Next, we get into the next part, which is her talent called Percipient Shine. In the latest version, this kit only has a word change and still has the same effect as the first version, where when Tingyan Fugue activates this technique, enemies within a certain radius will be affected by the Daze effect and they will not directly attack us for 10 seconds. When we enter the battle and attack an enemy that is in Daze, Fugue will get a 40% forward advance with a 100% base chance to give the same debuff as her skill, which is 18% decrease in defense. From my perspective, this technique is good enough to provide additional damage output for most characters, so I don't think there's a need for any more changes to this kit. The next interesting change lies in the third Ascension traces named Vigda Primordia by Tingyan Fugue. In its first version, this traces will increase the break effect of all allies by 15% for 2 turns when one enemy target is successfully hit by a weakness break, and this effect can be stacked up to 2 stacks. In the third version, traces got a pretty interesting change. When one enemy target is a weakness broken, the break effect of teammates except Tingyan Fugue will increase by 8%. If Fugue has a break effect of 250% or more, the break effect boost given in this condition will increase to 16%. This break effect boost lasts for 2 turns and can be stacked 2 times. The key changes on this trace are also pretty good, guys. If we count in total, then the addition of break effect in this latest version reached up to 40%. Obviously, this increase in break effect is much different when compared to the first kit. Although Tingyan herself cannot get this effect, these traces will clearly increase the super break damage of party members to be even greater. Okay, now we move on to Tingyan Fugue's Eidolon section. In the third version, there are 2 Eidolons owned by Tingyan Fugue that have changed. These Eidolons are Tingyan's second Eidolon and fourth Eidolon. In the first version of the kit, Tingyan's second Eidolon named Beauty Downs for the Worthy grants 5 points of regeneration energy to Fugue when an enemy target is weakness broken. It also grants allies a 24% forward advance after Fugue activates her ultimate. The change in the latest version is the total regeneration energy given, which was previously 5 energy to 3 energy. Well, the energy reduction obtained through Eidolon 2 is quite reasonable, considering that the enemy gets an additional toughness reduction, making it easier for us to provide a weakness broken effect. As for other effects, which can provide action advances to all party members, there is no change. As for Tingyan's fourth Eidolon, which is named Bereft of Form, which named to bear, in the previous version it had an effect where every attack issued by an ally with Foxian Prayer status, Tingyan had a 100% base chance of increasing the damage received by the enemy target by 15% for 2 turns. Now, in the latest version, this add-on only provides a 20% break damage increase buff for ally with Foxian Prayer status for 2 turns. Okay guys, that's about some of the changes that occurred in the third version of Tingyan Fugue's kit update. According to me personally, in the latest version of Tingyan's kit, overall Tingyan Fugue gets some improvements and adjustments, where in the latest kit, Tingyan gets more focus to become a support in the Super Break team. In addition, one of the kits that I think is a highlight in this latest version is Tingyan's ability to provide Ignore Toughness, which seems to be a very good boost for a weakness break characters who arguably have less than perfect hits, such as Rappa and Himeko. But what do you think? Is this third version of Tingyan Fugue update satisfying enough, or do you actually have other hopes for her? Feel free to leave any comments down below, and don't forget to check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, stay safe, healthy, and see you in the next video.